Today on the Locked On NBA podcast, we've got breaking news, a big return for Boston, plus Nikola Jokic. Is he on the best start in NBA history? And are we more worried about the future of Zion Williamson or Joel Embiid? I'll ask Matt and Haize today on Locked On NBA. Let's get it.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On NBA. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is sponsored by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. I'm Doug Branson, host of Locked On Hornets, and your Shot Clock Sherpa, guiding you through the NBA's biggest stories with the help of Locked On's local experts. And with me are two of Locked On's premier national NBA experts. From the Locked On Nuggets podcast and senior NBA writer for the Action Network, we've got Matt Moore. And from the Locked On Bulls podcast, it is Haize. Well, right before we started taping, we've got breaking news to talk about. The Boston Celtics, this is from Sham Sharani of ESPN, Boston Celtics center Kristaps Porziņģis plans to make his season debut tonight against the Los Angeles Clippers, sources tell ESPN. Porziņģis returns 5 months after undergoing foot surgery on an injury that he sustained in Game 2 of the NBA Finals. Let's go right to Matt and Haize. Matt, how big of a deal is this for Boston, getting Kristaps Porziņģis back in the lineup this early?
Not a big deal at all. Doesn't make a difference. 14-3. They're 14-3. How much? And there's gonna be like, but now with Porzingis, they'll be undefeated. No, like you're still gonna be a really good team. This is the NBA regular season. The Celtics are gonna beat most teams. Got a good win on Sunday versus the Wolves, but it was a little bit tight at the end. I continue to look at this team and kind of be like, yeah, I don't know. I think that they're really good. I don't think that they're unbeatable. I think they should be the favorites to win the title. I don't think they're unbeatable. Porzingis helps in specific matchups, right? I am not sold that he's going to solve their problems protecting the paint because of the scheme that they run and how they use him. Is Porzingis awesome? Yes. Does he change the equation versus a lot of teams they'll match up with in the playoffs? Yes. Does this suddenly transform them from a 14-3 team to a 17-0 team? No. It's like, it helps. It's nice, but they're good enough. Their bar is so high already. They don't need Porzingis, and he's not going to make them substantially better because they're so close to their ceiling most of the time anyway.
Well, despite it not necessarily raising their ceiling a whole lot, I do think getting Porzingis back and getting him healthy, getting him in tune and in rhythm is an important thing for the season to pace themselves. I think it does help with their defense. Initially, some could come out the gate. I think overall, you just want your guys healthy. I think that's the biggest part of this. Like, regardless of how much it increases their ceiling or not, you want all your guys healthy so that they can get in rhythm. And while Tatum has been playing at an MVP caliber level, one of the most consistent offensive seasons that he's had in a while, like maybe ever, that you want Porzingis out there. Porzingis is great, and you want your talent out there. And so even if that comes via, because what's the thing? Injuries. If it helps you avoid some injuries with having a better balance, not needing to play players as much in certain areas, yeah, and besides that, like old man Horford needs to sit down some. Porzingis helps a little bit with that.
Yeah, I mean, like they're plus 8.8 with Horford on the floor. They're plus 6.8 with Horford on the bench. Like, and Celtics fans will be like, but Kata, like this is fewer Kata minutes, and the Kata minutes have been bad. There's only so good you can be unless you're the Warriors from 2016, and this team is not that. They'll be really good. This helps. I think Haize's point is the best here. It helps Horford actually be able to sit down once in a while.
So they have been dominant. They haven't had many weaknesses. One of the weaknesses that Locked On Celtics host John Corrales has pointed out is rebounding. And in his first season with Boston, Porzingis did average 7.2 rebounds to go with 20 points, 2 assists, and almost 2 blocks per game. So I guess my question would be like, does their dominance this season actually make this important just in terms of like how they integrate him into the lineup, reintegrate him into the lineup? Because there's a possibility that can kind of shake things up for the negative, right?
Yeah, so I'll be very interested to see how Tatum plays with him back. That's, I think, the big thing for me is Tatum took a big step backwards last season to make room for everybody else. Like he stepped out of the spotlight as much. He was still the best player, still leading points per game, but he wasn't as ball dominant. And this season, he's been so incredible. But last season, the guy who really benefited the most from KP was Jaylen Brown. Like, Jaylen and KP had amazing chemistry in pick and roll situations. So I think this helps getting Jaylen going. But I'm going to be very curious to see what this looks like with Tatum. Not that he's going to struggle immediately, but just like, all right, does Tatum still look like this MVP guy, or does he take a step back again to let everybody else eat?
That's definitely a good perspective look on that, is him taking another step back. But I mean, if that's the best for the team, that's what's best for the team. Like, you got to sacrifice. And I think that this team going through winning the title, hopefully that they have understood the sacrifice that's needed to do that. And yeah, Tatum's season is great. It's been amazing. This has been the most fun I've had watching Jason Tatum play basketball probably ever. And I've always liked Jason Tatum. So I understand that taking a step back and it can cause maybe initially some hiccups, but like to Matt's point earlier, like, the Celtics are the best team in the East. They should be the favorite in the East, and they should be the favorite to win the title so far. This just helps strengthen and solidify that a little bit more.
I will say this, that like with Tatum, and like what's best for, like, that's what you got to do. It's what's best for the team. I think that's easy to say before you win the title when everybody's on the same page. They've won the title. And then Jason Tatum took nothing but an unending series of excrement for not being finals MVP and then being benched in the Olympics. So on some level, Jason Tatum, I think, is probably going to be like, there has to be a way for us to win and me to get mine. And I honestly don't think that's unreasonable for Jason Tatum.
Well, it'll be an interesting matchup tonight against the Clippers, who are sporting a 5-game winning streak and one of the more dominant defenses in the NBA. What are some realistic expectations for Porzingis tonight, particularly considering this is a pretty early return? I don't know that many people had the timeline this soon. What are the expectations that you have, Haize?
I mean, I don't really have very many. Like, anytime a player's coming back from a serious injury like this, and as rare as this injury was, I don't really have like be out there, be active, rebound the ball well, try to fit in the best you can. And the expectations come after he kind of really has a chance to get his footing under him. So I don't have like huge expectations for Porzingis. But I'll say this: every time I've said that this season, a player's come back and scored like 25 points in their return. So maybe my low expectations may actually mean a big night. But just to see Porzingis get back on the floor, figure out his timing, help the team rebound, help do some rim protection things. That's the biggest thing that I would like to see from Porzingis.
I just don't know what conditioning shape he's in, right? Like, maybe he's in better shape. That's not a negative. It's more of a better thing. Like, what if he's better? My expectations would be low. I'm like, all right, first game back, you're going to kind of settle in, probably going to be a little rusty. KP's done this before where it's like he's been out and he comes back in. He looks amazing that first game. So he might be really incredible. The Celtics went from 10-point favorites to 11-point favorites versus the Clippers tonight at home, both teams on a back-to-back.
Yeah, so the initial recovery timeline was 5 to 6 months. They thought he'd be back in December, but we are not even to Thanksgiving yet and going to get a chance to see Porzingis and what he can do for the Boston Celtics against the Clippers. I'm just glad that we get to talk about somebody coming back, because we've done a lot of talk this season about stars being injured, and so it's nice to have them come back. All right, coming up on the Locked On NBA podcast, we're going to talk about Nikola Jokic and his dominant start to the season. Just how dominant? Is it one of the best starts in NBA history? Plus, Giannis Antetokounmpo has been dominant as well, and it's gotten the Bucks back into the Eastern Conference playoff conversation, but it's not Giannis that is getting the credit on Locked On Bucks. It's someone else. Find out. Coming up. All right, this one's for the fellas. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by Skims. If you're like most guys, you probably haven't put much thought into upgrading your underwear in a while. But with Skims launching their men's line, it's time to rethink what comfort and support actually feel like. Skims is known for quality and fit, and now they're bringing that same attention to men's underwear. Imagine boxer briefs that stay in place, briefs that breathe, and fabrics that feel like they're made just for you. Skims has a range of options, whether you're looking for classic cotton boxer briefs that won't ride up, or stretch boxer briefs that move with you all day long. These aren't your usual store-bought packs, okay? Skims has tailored each style to keep its shape and deliver comfort that lasts. These briefs are perfect for anyone who wants their underwear to stay where it belongs without sacrificing comfort. Shop Skims Men's today at skims.com/LockedOnNBA. That's Skims Men's at skims.com/LockedOnNBA. More Locked On NBA ahead. Thanks so much for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Your favorite NBA team has a free daily newsletter. Go to lockedondaily.com and subscribe to stay up to date with local expert analysis and amazing writing from Katie Heindel, Mike Shearer, and Locked On fantasy basketball tips from Josh Lloyd. Again, that's lockedondaily.com. Okay, the Denver Nuggets took down the Lakers over the weekend, 127-102. They've won 6 out of their last 7 games and are slowly climbing the West standings after a difficult start. A large part of that has been the dominance of Nikola Jokic. How dominant? Let's hear from Ryan Blackburn of Locked On Nuggets.
In the first 12 games of a season, 364 points, 167 rebounds, 135 assists, just the standard old points, rebounds, and assists. It has only ever been done twice else in a 12-game span, like those kind of round number requirements. Once was by, obviously, Jokic this year, and then twice during the 2023 playoffs by Jokic. The amount of fear that Jokic is instilling in other people right now is insane. The reactions that every Laker was giving when Jokic had the ball, it looked like a 5-alarm fire for every single time he touched it, every single time he rose to shoot, every single time he put the ball up by his ear to make a pass. And I know you talked about the tip last night, the near tip full court with 0.3 seconds left. Who does this, man? Nobody's doing this. This has never happened before.
Yeah, that tip punch volleyball hit almost went in from 3/4 court. Crazy stuff. But it's not just about that. It's not just about the numbers. It's how Jokic is elevating his team, dominating every aspect of the game. But how does that start stack up against the all-time greats, and can he keep it going? Matt, we saw you in that clip, but we didn't get to hear from you. In your opinion, is this the best start in NBA history?
Well, we're using start because we don't want to go so far as to be like, is this so far the greatest season in NBA history? Because we're only through 14 games. Like, you don't want to go too far here. And I get it. But look, I'm not going to throw Vorps and Schmorps at you. I'm not going to throw any sort of like advanced numbers. I'm not going to ask you to calculate the Pythagorean theorem here. I'm just going to give you simple stuff that's been in the box score for decades. This season, so far, Jokic is averaging 58 points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks. That's like our basic box score stuff, right? Points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks. That's what makes up your box score. No one in NBA history has averaged more than Jokic is currently averaging. Now, I don't think he's going to finish with that many because he's also up by a full 3 on Kareem Abdul-Jabbar back in 1976. That's insane. It's ridiculous. It's preposterous. But the biggest thing here is there's lots of guys that put up numbers. I can't get over how Jokic puts up numbers, impacts the game, does it efficiently, and wins his minutes. Like, I want to be like, what a numbers merchant. There's so many guys that put up empty stats, and Jokic is the opposite. There's lots of nights where he doesn't have crazy stats, and I'm like, he dominated. And there are nights where he's put up ridiculous stat lines, and I've been like, yeah, he was fine. Because Jokic is so good at every single aspect of impacting a basketball game. It gets tiresome because he's been at this so long, but what I do not understand, the man's better than ever. And every single time, guys, I've been covering the man for a decade. Every time I think he can't get better, he does. And I don't know what to do with that, Haize.
I mean, if like when you put that into perspective, like differential with Jokic on the court, plus 33. Points per 100 possessions, plus 35. Those are both the highest number of his career, and he's doing that 10 years in. Effective field goal shooting percentage, plus 13.2%. Again, the highest number of his NBA career. How is he doing this? I don't know, but I'm sure the NBA is going to drug test him soon because that's just the way that it happens. Like, it's just the way that it happens. Jokic, I love the way that you said that Jokic finds a way to always positively impact the basketball game because that is what he does. Regardless of what the stats tell you, Jokic is always up there making heads-up play. The team is always better when he's on the court. And for somebody who's already won MVPs to be putting together a season like this, you remember at the start of the season, we were talking about how disappointing the season started for the Denver Nuggets. Now we're talking about the opposite. Like, the Nuggets are always going to be a threat as long as they have Jokic on this team. Now, Jamal Murray needs to come along to a little bit as well, but like, Jokic is such a special talent, man. I used to argue with people all the time. They're like, well, yeah, Jokic is good, but he's boring to watch. I'm like, boring for what? Do you not like basketball? Because if you love basketball, I don't understand how you cannot enjoy watching Nikola Jokic play the game of basketball. He's so good at what he does, and he makes it look so effortless. That's the thing that makes it so special, is that he's just out there going about his business. And like I've said many times before, like the way Jokic treats the NBA like a job. And he's so good at it that he's earned the right to do that. But still, don't cross him when he's on that court, because he will absolutely murder you.
Okay, I hear you both. And Matt, I appreciate you not going into the Vorps and Schmorps. But I gotta toss a few names your way and a few seasons your way to see if we can break this up a little bit, because you've got Michael Jordan in his 86-87 season, first 20 games, he scores 40 or more points in all but seven of them, including a 50-point game and almost 6 because he had 39 in one of those games. LeBron James, the start that Miami had in that 2011-12 season. Steph Curry, when the Warriors went 24-0, he averaged almost 33 points a game. So are you putting Jokic above all of these names in these seasons?
No. Like, because here's the thing. Because here's the thing, when that 2016 season, you were just like, the Warriors can't lose. I went on a national radio station and was like, I think they can go 82-0. That was a real thing that came out of my mouth. And it was stupid at the time, and it's stupid now, but that's what it felt like to me. Jordan, it's tough because time has taken away a lot of it, but you do have to understand, like, those early Jordan days were so absurd in terms of what it felt like, the pace, the defense, hand checking, all of that. And for Jordan to be now, like, defense was different, right? With doubles, et cetera, but that was entirely different. But what I will say is, I don't know that anybody has ever done it in a way where he didn't take anything away on the offensive end. Like, there's no cost here. He does make his teammates better. He does lift everybody up. He is an incredible passer. If you took out the 30 points per game Yoke's averaging, he's first in rebounds and second in assists. Like, there's so many ways that he impacts it. Nobody makes his team better while also doing the lifting. And that combo, I think, is what puts him in those conversations.
No notes for me on that one. Absolutely. Like, as far as when it comes down to, like, comparing them to others, like, you can't do it for a whole season yet. Like, but if Jokic keeps this up, I do think, like, if he's able, which I doubt that he's going to be able to, right. If he does keep this up, yes, I'll say it. If he keeps this up, it's the best single season in NBA history.
Only got to do it for 67 more games.
Yeah. Well, and I think you'd have to add the context in there that particularly early this season, they dealt with the injury to Aaron Gordon. You've got Murray's subpar play. Like, how much of that does that fact? Matt, he kind of has to play like this, right? Yeah. For Denver to succeed. Yeah.
No, if he doesn't play like this, they won't win his minutes by enough, and the bench will get blown out, and then they're gonna lose. Like, he has to do this. The question has always been with Jokic, and, like, I always want to, like, knock on wood here, but I also don't remember anybody who is this tireless, who is endurance. He plays he missed time for the birth of his son, but if he can go, he goes. He's never like, hamstring's a little tight. He's like, no, hamstring's tight, but I'm playing. He plays every game. He plays heavy minutes. He does everything, and he never complains, and he just goes and goes and goes. There has to be a limit on it, and I hope that limit is not found with some sort of bad incident. But that's the concern here, is that he's having to do so much to keep this team where it is. They're not winning games comfortably. He doesn't get to sit in the fourth. That's not how it works here right now with where the Nuggets roster is at. There's a lot for them to figure out. The Nuggets aren't good enough right now. Nikola Jokic is.
Yeah, and because of that, we haven't had an opportunity to talk about them a lot on this show, and so I'm going to take advantage of that right now. Matt, Russell Westbrook, 14, 7, and 11 in his return to L.A., and he let them know about it for sure. He was very emotional in that game. Is Russ finding a way to contribute meaningfully to Denver so far, or has this been a poor fit, okay fit, great fit?
It's been great. He's shooting 37% from three, and he's shooting somewhere close to he's actually shooting 36% around the season, but he's shooting 39% since the first 2 games of the season when he couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat. Now, I don't expect him to hit water if he falls out of a boat. I've watched Russ shoot before. I have to be like really cautious here because every single time that anybody in Denver is like, Russ is playing really well, every group of fans is like, just wait. And it's like, yeah, I get it. The odds are that Russ is going to be unplayable in the playoffs for Denver. The odds are that Russ is going to be the overall numbers for him. He's a negative. Like, they don't win when he's on the floor, but he's given them such great defense. He pushes the pace. He provides energy, and he's been making plays. And he and Jokic have really good chemistry passing to one another. Like, they work really well together. It's been a really good fit so far. Will that hold? Probably not based off of history, but if Jokic can do things that when we always are like, there's no way he can, and he does it, I'm not going to rule it out entirely.
I just want to say that I'm proud of you both, Matt, for not using the Vorps and Schmorps, and Haize for not taking my Clippers bait for the Clippers hate. So I'm just so proud of you both. All right, coming up on the Locked On NBA podcast, I did promise Bucks talk, and I'm going to deliver it in the next segment because they are playing better, and it's Doc Rivers. I'll just spoil it. It's Doc Rivers getting some credit from Locked On Bucks, and I've got to get Matt and Haize's take on that. That's coming up. Plus, a lot of news about Zion Williamson, and the future doesn't look particularly bright for him or Joel Embiid. Who are you more worried about in terms of their future in the NBA, Zion Williamson or Joel Embiid? That's coming up. Stick with us. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by our good friends at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, like I did when I was watching the Carolina Panthers play the Kansas City Chiefs, I had a hunch that they were going to make that game a little bit more competitive than people were giving them credit for, because Bryce Young's been playing better. And I, for one, have always been a Bryce Young fan. You won't hear anything on Locked On Hornets that's any different. Please don't check. But you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You are going to get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And this episode is also brought to you by our friends at Game Time. There's nothing like the rush of watching an NBA game live, the roar of the crowd, the squeak of sneakers, Russell Westbrook chattering with his former fans in Los Angeles, and the thunder of a game-winning dunk. Whether you're catching your favorite team this season or grabbing tickets for a rival matchup, Game Time makes it easier than ever to get great seats. With Game Time Picks, the app curates the best deals so you're not stuck scrolling through endless ticket options. I was recently checking out seats for an upcoming game and found their super deal feature. It's incredible how much you can save, and Game Time has your back. Their lowest price guarantee ensures you always get the best price. They'll even credit you 110% of the difference if you find a better deal. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. More Locked On NBA ahead. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. There's a free daily Locked On podcast for your favorite NBA team. Search your favorite podcast app for Locked On and your favorite team today. So let's talk about the Milwaukee Bucks. Rough start to the season, much like Denver. And much like Denver, they've pulled themselves back from the brink, thanks in large part to the dominance of their superstar, Giannis Antetokounmpo. They have won 4 straight, 7 of their last 10. Head coach Doc Rivers was taking a lot of heat during their brutal start to the year, and now Locked On Bucks says it's time to give him a little bit of credit for the comeback.
I think Doc Rivers has been very important for this team. I think Doc Rivers has maybe not outwardly said this, but he's hinted at it. This is the ideal group for me. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot of drama. I don't have to worry about egos and personalities and infighting. And I think the most important part of all of it is the message that we continue to hear from Doc early in the season, what Bobby kind of echoed too, that they never hung their heads. They never wavered. They never started to point the finger and really let things spiral, even with that start, that you had that singular message and approach from Doc Rivers of, it's going to get better. We believe it.
Had you told me when the Bucks fired Mike Budenholzer that Doc Rivers is going to be that coach to take them into the playoffs, I would have scoffed and said, like, we got that at home. Why are we doing this? I don't think this is the right move. But seeing him with this group and seeing just what he brings to it, like, I think he is the right guy at this moment for this team.
Okay, Haize, do you buy the turnaround for the reputation of Doc Rivers there in Milwaukee?
I buy it now. Yes, he has he's been a very big part of them being able to turn it around. But just wait for the other shoe to drop, because it always drops with Doc Rivers. And I hate to say that, I don't want to be that guy, but like Doc Rivers, the track record is proven. Like Doc Rivers is an okay, serviceable head coach. Make no mistake about it. But like the things are always going to happen with Doc Rivers where he is going to fail, where he is going to not make the adjustments at the right time, where some of the other things that teams do. Like Doc Rivers can turn this around. I always expected the Bucks to win a lot of regular season games, but if you're expecting playoff success, Doc Rivers is going to fail you every single time. And I know that's not the proper thing to talk about right now. We should be celebrating the Bucks turning around because they've done a really good job of that. Giannis has been playing great, but if it comes down to me trusting Doc Rivers to maintain this, I'm never going to do that. Not for Doc.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's also like, hey, they're 8-9. Okay, congrats, right? To me, I will give Doc some credit here. The lineups were so bad, and a lot of coaches will, and honestly, if you'd asked me if Doc is going to change, I've been like, no. Most coaches like Doc are like, no, if we just execute better, we'll be fine. I'm not adjusting things. He has switched so much up. Damian Lillard and Bobby Portis are no longer playing as many minutes together, and those minutes were really the bleed. He's played AJ Green more, who has been absolutely terrific. He moved Gary Trent Jr. to the bench to balance things out. That's helped a lot. Gary's actually been really good in his bench minutes now. So Doc's triaged the problems that they were having to stop the bleed. But as Haize said, our question was never, can Doc Rivers get this team to the playoffs? Can Doc Rivers get this team to 45 plus wins? Even 50. The question is, can they win playoff series with him? And when you have a guy that's blown as many 3-1 leads as him, that's the issue. But that's a concern for down the line. If we're going to talk about how it started and how it's going, it's been a really good turnaround because Doc's done the work of triaging the problems that were causing the Bucks failures.
And back to Locked On Bucks, they basically discussed what you just discussed there, which was that he's made the roster moves, and on top of that, he's managed the drama. There hasn't been we haven't heard a ton of drama out of Milwaukee, although certainly they were frustrated at the losing. What's interesting to me is when you get to the playoffs and the X's and O's maybe matter a little bit more, is this a team when you have Giannis, who is such a dominant physical presence, who can go and get buckets where other players may not be able to get those same buckets? Is this a team better suited to have a coach that maybe has looked at someone who blows those situations more than others, Matt?
I think the big issue here with Milwaukee and kind of where they're at is there's still so many weaknesses you can find. And you needed a coach who is going to find strategies that were going to account for those weaknesses. For Brook Lopez playing drop with Damian Lillard trailing, which is going to open up so much scoring for opponents. As good as their defense has been in the regular season, and it has been, that's a playoff problem. Being able to target specific matchups, being able to layer defenses for Giannis and finding different ways to get him going, they're not going to change that. Doc has never proven that he's going to think outside of the box to come up with creative solutions for playoff issues. That's not how he coaches. And that's okay. He won a title and he's won a lot of playoff series. Like, Doc's not an unsuccessful head coach, but this team in particular needs problem solving, and that's not what Doc does. And that continues to be my biggest concern.
I want to make sure we get to all of the Zion news that we've gotten, because there was a lot over the weekend, particularly on Friday. Injury updates, injury non-updates, a break from his agency, and that's not all. Let's go to Jake Madison of Locked On Pelicans.
This is exhausting. If you're a Pelicans fan, all the news and things coming out over the past couple of days, really just on Friday, is absolutely exhausting. Zion talking to the media kind of with some non-answers. That tattoo video and what Zion looks like. A Shams Charania report about him already missing his timeline. News coming out in the middle of a game that he is splitting up with his agency. What the heck is going on here? Because this seems like a lot all at once. And there's actually like very reasonable explanations for everything, right? We don't know if he fired his agency or they dropped him. And what I've kind of been told is he just wanted to make a move. The tattoo video is old, not recent, and likely came after he was injured a while back. So it kind of explains why his body looks like what it does. So we can rationalize it. We can explain it. We can defend what's going on. I just kind of did. But honestly, I don't really care to. This is exhausting and not a way that a franchise can operate and build a sustainable winner.
The title of Jake's episode is WTF is going on with Zion Williamson. Matt, can you offer us any insight into why all of this is swirling right now?
I mean, look, I will say this. The word on Zion has always been that it's a little messy. Like, it's just his inner circle, the conversations, and dealing with Zion. Like, he's never been a guy where it's like, yep, he's just like a total pro, just does his job, keeps on. There's always kind of like a sense of unhappiness with him about something. And like, I don't want to pile on here because also Zion, I think, has tried really hard here over the last, especially 2 to 3 seasons, to do less of that, to be more of a team player, to have like a normal NBA career. All of this is just because he's injured. Because you could be as messy and have all these problems and the CAA stuff and split with your agency and get the back tattoo and look a little out of shape. All of that, it doesn't matter if you're dominating when you're on the floor. But if you're not physically able to, people are going to ask why. And he's not. And that's continues to be the problem. And this hamstring, there's talk of multiple treatments, and that's vague. And he's not, quote, anywhere close to returning. And that's vague. There's always a disconnect where it doesn't feel like he has a clear line of communication with the team and is allowing the team to communicate for him. And that only complicates the situation and creates more tension, especially with the fans.
Haize, it's crazy. We've got some talk of, the Pelicans possibly waiving Zion Williamson. And then we look at Philadelphia, and they're still dealing with Joel Embiid continuing to struggle to get back, managing his knee injury. Who are you more worried about right now in terms of their future with their current team, Zion Williamson or Joel Embiid?
Zion, by far. Zion's almost 7 years younger than Joel Embiid and hasn't really accomplished anything in his career other than being a physical specimen, dominant player when he's out there on the court. Like, everything that's going on with Zion, yeah, there could be explainable things to happen, but it's just always something with Zion. Joel Embiid, for what it's worth, it's concerning there as well, but we know what he can be when he's on the court locked in and actually healthy. Zion Williamson, we don't even know if he's ever going to be able to be healthy for a playoff series. It's not even just the health concerns, it's everything else going around Zion as well. So, yeah, I'm more concerned about Zion. He's also in a franchise that is unstable in general as well. So, yeah, Zion's the bigger concern for me right now.
Matt, what do you think?
I think the answer is yes. The answer is yes to all of these things. It is easier for me to identify the teams in the NBA I'm not worried about. It's just a lot. I'm not worried about OKC. I'm not worried about Boston. I'm not worried about the Cavs. I'm not worried about those teams. Everybody else, it seems like, is going through stuff early in the season, whether it's injuries or drama or something else. And I just feel like this is a season where a lot of teams, I think, had very high expectations coming in, and it's turning once again into, can you survive the 6-month battle to get to the playoffs?
Yeah, we can throw Tyrese Halliburton in there as well. We haven't had a chance to talk about his struggles for the Indiana Pacers. Make sure you go check out Locked On Pacers, Locked On Pelicans, and also Locked On Sixers. Everyone doing a great job of covering these struggles. But to your point, I think we're less hard on Halliburton because he's out there. He's working through it. And had a little bit of a comeback game in his last outing. So we will keep monitoring here on Locked On NBA. If you like what you heard today, subscribe to Locked On NBA wherever you get podcasts, including YouTube. And you can also check out Locked On NBA Game Time. They are covering every game every night. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen. Enjoy tonight's action. Be kind to each other. And we are going to see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On NBA.